Bit nippy this morning. I've got the heater on the go. I feel like this is a bit counterproductive though, because I've got the sliding door wide open because I need the natural light to come in so I can see what I'm doing, because I don't want to open the back doors because it's too cold. But welcome back to another episode of the van build. It's actually been 6 days, I think, since I finished the last video, but I've been waiting this week for this box to arrive, which is really heavy. But basically inside this box we have all of our cable that we're going to be using to power all of our electrical components. We've also got a few other bits and pieces in here. So this is a shunt, I'll go through this a bit later on. This cable, this is for the batteries. This is like really thick cable. I think this was about £26 a metre, so it was really expensive. But you need to have thick cable for when you're transferring a lot of electricity. I've got a load of like terminals to go on the end of the cables, clips, and yeah, like some more stuff in there. And then I've got a couple of these, what are they called, like breakers, so like trip switch things. Got a couple of those. Oh, this thing's really good as well. I'm really excited about this. This is basically a way to connect the like the metal clip things on the end of the cables. It's quite cool. You essentially put the cable in there with a clip and you like smack it with a hammer and it kind of like squashes it together. Just for the record though, I'm not an electrician. I've got a very basic understanding of electricity and I've done an awful lot of research into how to do this. I think one of the most important things is cable sizing, because if your cables aren't big enough then they can overheat and catch fire. So it's really important to get the right size cable, and it's always better to go slightly thicker than what you think you might need, just in case. So this is a very rough diagram of what our electrical setup is going to be in the van. Essentially we've got the 3 batteries on the left here. They are going to be connected to these 2 bars here. This is a positive and a negative bar, and essentially they're just like extension leads to the batteries. So if I wire everything in to these, it'll be a lot easier than wiring it all into the batteries, if that makes sense. So connected to these we've got the battery charger, the DC to DC charger, the solar we're going to get but not yet, and then the 12-volt system, which I haven't got any parts for yet, so we're not worrying about that today. We've also got the inverter that we're going to do separately. Again, we don't have that yet because we don't really need it just yet, but I think that's going to be wired directly to the batteries because that's got quite a big draw on it, and I don't think it can go through these because the current's too big. But the battery charger, that is going to be connected to these bars and then to the leisure batteries, and it's also going to be connected to the engine battery as well. So when we're plugged into the mains, we'll be charging both the batteries, so we should always have a full charge on the leisure batteries, and then the engine battery should be full as well, so we shouldn't have to worry about getting a flat battery. The DC to DC charger kind of does the same thing but the reverse, so that just essentially charges our leisure batteries off of the engine battery, which gets charged when the engine's running. So as long as we're either plugged into the mains or the engine's running, we're driving somewhere, then both of our batteries should be getting charged, so we should never have any issues there. So the focus of today anyway is just to get the battery charger, the DC to DC charger, installed and wired up through the bars to the engine with all the breakers and everything like that, so I can just charge the batteries and make sure they work. And then the 12-volt I think is going to be next, and that will be our lights, sockets, the water pump, fridge. I think the diesel heater's running off of that as well. And yeah, I think that's pretty much phase 1. Solar I think we're going to get next year, inverter I think we might get next year. So yeah, let's get this all wired up and see if it works. Alright everybody, it's another day. I was in this van until about 8 o'clock last night, just trying to get the cabling finished. When I was building this cupboard and all these bits and pieces to house all the electrical components, I thought it was really cool that I could make it really tight and really small so it doesn't take up much room. But in doing that, it makes it really hard to run cables anywhere because there's just no room to put anything. So it's a complete mess. I guess once it's all boarded up, no one's going to see it, so it doesn't really matter too much. But our battery is wired through this thick cable all the way up there into the 2 bars that I was talking about yesterday in the diagram. And then we've got the other components that are connected to this. So that is our DC to DC charger, which is the engine to leisure battery charger. And then tucked away behind that is our mains battery charger. I still need to connect a cable into this socket because we're going to have another one up here somewhere, I think. So I'm going to have to get in there and do that at some point. But I think we're pretty much ready to go to see if the chargers work and if we can get our batteries up and running. So here we go everyone, turning on the battery charger for the very first time. So what's good about this Victron equipment that I got is that you can download an app and you can just like see everything and control everything off your phone. I think it just connects via Bluetooth, so it's nothing fancy or anything, but I just need to figure out what I'm doing here. Let's connect to this. Status. Right, okay. Do you know what I'm going to do? It's nearly lunchtime. I'm going to go inside, have some lunch. I'm going to set up this battery charger, and hopefully when it's up and running I'll be able to show you the charge of both the batteries, and with a bit of luck it works. I don't think I've wired anything wrong, so yeah, I'm going to go and do that. I think I need to play around with some of the settings, so I'll catch up with you guys once this is all set up. So I think I've sussed everything out and everything seems to be working. It's quite hard to get your head around voltages and amps and like things like that. It's quite confusing. The only issue that I have is that because my mains battery charger is charging the engine battery as well, that when the engine battery reaches a certain voltage, then the alternator battery kicks in because it thinks that the engine's running because the voltage is high, and then it starts running power back to the leisure batteries again, and it's kind of like a weird little loop thing that's going on. I don't know whether that's a problem or not. I guess there's 2 ways around it. You can either have a manual switch so that you could turn the alternator charger on and off manually so that it doesn't pull any power back when I'm trying to charge the engine battery. I guess the issue with that though is that if you forget to switch it on, then you might do a really long drive hoping to charge your batteries and then suddenly realise that you didn't turn the switch on and you haven't been charging. And I don't really want to risk doing that because I know that that will definitely happen. You can't always remember to switch it on and off. The other thing that I can do, which is what I've been playing around with, is on the app that comes with the Victron stuff, is you can tweak the settings and adjust them slightly. So what I've done is on the mains battery charger that's charging the engine battery, as a default setting, that will charge the battery until it hits 14.4 volts. So essentially, the higher the voltage is, the higher percentage of the charge is. So I think 14.4, 14.5 is pretty much a full charge on a 12 volt battery. So I've got the mains battery charger charging the engine battery until it hits 14.4 volts, and then that's kind of like the ceiling. It won't continue to charge beyond that. And then if I come out of that and go on to the alternator charger, then I've got this set at only kicking in when it hits 14.5 volts. The lockout value is the voltage that the battery will get to when it stops pulling charge from it. So when you turn the engine off, the voltage will drop down to below 13.5, and then the charger thing will recognize that and it will stop pulling power. and then it won't start up again until it hits the restart value, which in this case is 14.5 volts. But because I've got the mains battery charger set up to only charge the engine battery until it gets to 14.4, then when I turn the engine on in the van, it should jump up to 14.5, and then 14.5 is the number I've put into the alternator charger, in which it will recognise the engine's on, and then it will start charging the leisure battery from the engine. I hope that made sense, but essentially everything's working. We haven't had any fires, we've had no explosions, we've had no electric shocks. Also want to quickly mention that I recently started an Instagram page called living_the_tiny_life. I've never really been much of an Instagrammer, but I really feel like it's a good way to show you guys kind of like behind the scenes of what's going on, just like day-to-day stuff. So if you are interested in following our Instagram page, then the link is in the description, or it's just living_the_tiny_life. But that's going to do it for this video anyway. I really hope you enjoyed it. Give it a massive thumbs up if you did. Make sure you come back next time for the diesel heater install, assuming everything goes to plan anyway. But until then, have a safe drive, stay alive, have a lovely day, try not to spill anything, and we'll see you next time.